Hey guys, it's Cherrylicious, and today I'm going to be ranking every single one of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1 episodes on a tier list, S to D scale. I'm hoping to do a series for all of the Friendship is Magic seasons, but there are a lot, so we'll see how that goes. For now, we're just going to start with Season 1. Our first episode is obviously Friendship is Magic, Part 1 and Part 2. I'm going to be counting them as the same episode, purely because it says Part 1 and Part 2. Now, my opinions on this episode are a bit mixed, to be completely honest. On one hand, I think it introduces Twilight, Sparkle, and Spike incredibly well. I couldn't imagine much of a better way they could have gone about that. But on the other hand, I feel like this episode treats the other members of the main six, the other five, as side characters a little bit. I understand the plot is about Princess Celestia, Nightmare Moon, and you gotta up the stakes to really get the characters to bond and gel together, and especially for the first episode, it makes sense why they'd have such a bombastic, important story to really start out with. And I also like how the story helps to establish Equestria as a universe, because the story itself involves backstory, if that makes sense. The episode's plot involves explaining some of the backstory, what Equestria is, where everyone is in it. And I think that was a nice touch and a really good way to do that. But at the same time, I think it just falls kind of flat, especially compared to some of the later Season 1 episodes. I don't know. I think they found their footing a little bit later. So for now, I'm going to rank Friendship is Magic Part 1 and Part 2 in the B tier. Alright, after that one, we've got The Ticketmaster. This is the third episode. This is the episode where all of Twilight's friends essentially become stingy jerks all of a sudden. I get it's like early in the pony's friendship, I get that. But at the same time, I really didn't like this episode from what I remember from it. It just feels wrong. It feels out of character for a lot of these ponies just to be like, oh, give me the ticket, I want the ticket, you know. It's a whole thing, and I think the ending's also kind of predictable. I know complaining about predictable endings in a children's cartoon probably isn't the most valid complaint, but I'm gonna make that complaint anyway. Ticketmaster, I don't think it was the worst episode ever, but even at the same time, I'm gonna put it in C. I'm gonna put it below the season premiere. Our fourth episode is Applebuck season, and I actually quite liked this one. I don't know if it's one of my favorites of all time, but I think it really establishes Applejack pretty well as sort of the struggles Applejack would have as a character later. If you don't remember much about this episode, this is the episode where Applejack essentially does not sleep. She refuses to sleep because she's still got stuff to do around the orchard. And she refuses to ask for help as well because she thinks she doesn't need it, and she puts all that responsibility on herself. Now, even though this is a show for 10 to 12-year-olds probably, I think we can all relate to this issue specifically. And I don't know, I quite like this episode. I don't have much else to say, so I'm gonna put it in A tier. Alright, next we have Griffin, the Brush Off. I don't know about this one, to be completely honest. Because on one hand, I really like Pinky and Rainbow and their whole antics. But Gilda really drags this episode down, in my opinion. Weird to say, because I actually really like Gilda in the later seasons. But this time, she's just like a jerk for the sake of being a jerk. She's rude for the sake of being rude. And it sort of just feels like, oh, we needed a character that is rude 100% of the time. So, you know, let's make one. I don't know. It feels strange. This episode is really off-key, especially compared to the rest of Season 1, in my opinion. As I said before, Gilda really just brings this episode down. I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's pretty different from the rest of the season. But I don't think it's terrible. I'm going to put it in B tier. Actually, I'm going to put it in C tier, right above the Ticketmaster. That's where I'm going to put Griffin the Brush Off. Alright, next we have Boastbusters, and I'm immediately going to run that right to S. This episode is a classic for a reason. I actually really like this one. I really like Trixie's debut as well. I think it's a really good episode overall. Twilight is in character, everyone else is in character. Trixie is a really good villain, not in the sense that she is, like, threatening, even though she is near the end. I think she's just really entertaining. I think she's really fun to watch. And I mean, I can name a lot of scenes from this episode, and I can't recall any specific moments where I could be like, oh, I didn't really like this part, or this part kind of weirded me out. This is like a 9 out of 10. We're approaching perfect with Ghostbusters. Maybe even the best episode in season 1, but we'll see as we keep going if that's the case. Next we have Dragon Shy. This is an interesting one for me. I used to really like this episode. This episode used to be one of my favorites, but upon rewatching it, I mean, it's pretty good still, but I think they go a little overboard sometimes with Fluttershy's whole cowardly shtick. I get that this is her first like real main episode, and you know, they're really trying to establish that and be like, oh, well, she's gonna grow later and she's gonna become less cowardly and less shy and all that. But this episode was just kind of annoying occasionally. I'm not gonna say that it was a bad episode. I thought it was a really good episode, but Dragon Shy, little annoying on that part, at least from what I remember. I'm gonna put it in an A tier still. I think it's better than the premiere, at least upon rewatch. And I think it's a little worse than Applebuck season, so we'll put it below Applebuck season. Alright, next up we have Look Before You Sleep. This is the episode where Applejack and Rarity sleep over at Twilight Sparkle's house and generally get on each other's nerves. I think it's pretty entertaining. I think it is a decent setup because Applejack and Rarity, just based on their character concepts, have a lot uncommon about each other. They're at odds often. And I think this episode really sets up that dynamic pretty well. They're still friends at the end of the day, but it's very clear that they're annoyed with each other. And they're not really liking spending time around each other right now, even though they're forced to, because they're at Twilight's house and they got to do all these forceful activities. I think it's a decent setup. I wouldn't say it's my favorite episode of the season. I definitely wouldn't put it in S tier. But I still think it's pretty decent. I'm just trying to determine whether it goes above Dragon Shy or not. I'd probably still... Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it at the top of A tier, I think. I'm going to put it above Applebuck season and above Dragon Shy. Might be a controversial pick. Let me know if you hate me in the comments, because your hate might be justified. Alright, our 9th episode is Bridal Gossip. This is the one where everyone is really scared of Zecora for no particular reason. And Apple Bloom is actually the one to go out and sort of investigate the situation and find out that Zecora's ultimately harmless and a cool person, cool friend. And I actually like that sort of flip of dynamics, because you'd normally think like the adults would be the reasonable ones in this situation, but it takes a child to sort of figure stuff out and teach them how it works. But at the same time, a lot of this episode feels kind of empty to me. I feel like they had to stretch it out a little bit with some of the like the special scary shots and all that, because there isn't enough going on in this episode to fill the runtime. So they sort of just like add dialogue, if that makes sense. I feel like this is one of the only episodes in this season where I feel like they really did that. Maybe I'm just making stuff up, but that's how I felt rewatching it. I don't know if I'm gonna put it below the season premiere on B tier. I think it's better than Griffin the Brush Off and the Ticketmaster, definitely. But I don't think it's quite as good as the season premiere, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier. Sorry if I'm running through these super fast, by the way. There's a lot of episodes and I want to get this video done at some point. So I'm trying to speed through these at this point. Episode number 10 is Swarm of the Century. This one I actually didn't really like all that much. I think the episode is, like, the plot is fine, but even more so than Bridal Gossip, this one just filled time. This episode just had to, like, do a bunch of visual comedy with the Parasprites. I think that was their name, the Parasprites. And they just had to keep reiterating the same point over and over that, oh, Pinky knows how to deal with this, but no one's listening to her because they think she's stupid. I don't know. I mean, I like the concept, but they just couldn't come up with enough stuff, in my opinion, to really, like, really run with it. I don't want to make this the first D tier. I really don't want to make this the first D tier. But do I prefer the Ticketmaster or this? Screw it. I'm going to make it D tier. Let me know how much you hate that in the comments. That's my first D tier. Swarm of the Century is my first D tier. All right, next up we got Winter Wrap-Up, Winter Wrap-Up. Now this was the big, pretty much Christmas special as far as I know. I think it came out around Christmas, though you might want to fact check me on that. And this is just like, Ponyville has this tradition where they clean up all the snow, because in Equestria, you know, you have the weather Pegasi. We'll just call them that. There's the Rainbow Factory as well, but there's a bunch of weather Pegasi. And everyone's got to help up clean the snow, because I guess weather can't do it on its own, because we just got to make the weather up. Looking at this episode critically, I think it's pretty alright. I'm thinking I'm going to put it in the top of B tier. I think I'm going to put it up here. I think it's better than the season premiere, and I think it establishes a good issue with Twilight Sparkle as a character. Not like an issue as in like, oh, it's bad character design. I just mean like a character flaw in that, like, she really wants to help with everything. She always wants to be involved, whether she really needs to be or not. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty nice. I'm not going to put it in A tier because it's not one of my favorites, but, you know, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good episode. All right, number 12, we've got Call of the Cutie. This is our introduction to Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon, I believe. And I think this is a decent episode as well. But I think Diamond Tiara, Silver Spoon really needed more, like, development before this point, or something, like, to really add to them, because, I don't know, I think they're just sort of there to cause the problem. I think there were better ways to go about Apple Bloom really being worried that, like, oh, I don't have my cutie mark. Everyone's gonna not like me. I don't think they should have gone with the everyone's gonna hate me route. I think they should have gone with, like, I really want to grow up route, because I feel like that's more accurate to the characters. Apple Bloom isn't, well, she sort of is, but I feel like she shouldn't be doing it just to be liked, because that's generally not where they go in the future, and it's just weird as an introduction, in my opinion. I don't think it's a terrible episode or anything. I mean, we were introduced to Scootaloo, and Scootaloo is, like, the best. If you remember my old channel name, then you'll know how much I love Scootaloo. But at the same time, I'm gonna put it at the top of C tier. It's better than Griffin the Brush Off. I'll put it at the top of C tier. Fall Weather Friends is up next on the docket, and some of y'all may disagree with me on this. I think it's one of the best episodes in Season 1. Maybe in the early seasons, just in general. I'm not going to put it above Ghostbusters, purely because I think Ghostbusters is, like, one of, like, the My Little Pony episodes. Like, that's one of the best ones I think most people might agree on, at least from what I know. And Fall Weather Friends, I don't think it's talked about as much, but I really liked Fall Weather Friends. I think it has a lot of character drama. I think it's got a lot of humor in it as well that actually, like, works, like the slapstick humor when they're running the Iron Pony race, or you can have Spike in the balloon and he's doing Spike things with a microphone in the balloon. I think that was really funny. I don't know. I really like this episode. I like Applejack and Rainbow Dash being competitive, and I like how some of the other ponies got to show off a little bit as well. Even Twilight finished ahead of Applejack and Rainbow Dash because they were too busy bickering during the race. So I'm going to put this below Ghostbusters, but at the same time, I'm still going to put it in S tier. Now we have Suited for Success, and this is another one that I'm probably going to put in D tier, to be completely honest. I'm probably going to put it next to Swarm of the Century, probably above Swarm of the Century, but yeah, it's not worse than Swarm of the Century. I'll say that much. But I didn't really like this one. I don't know, it just feels like everyone is really pressuring Rarity for, like, the majority of the episode, and then Rarity's like, oh, my career is ruined because I made all these terrible dresses and everyone's gonna wear them and they're terrible models, and, you know, just everyone recommends these sort of like, oh, put this on my dress or put that on my dress, and it's just, why? It's a huge why, and I think it's a waste of 22 minutes. Finally, at episode 15, we have Feeling Pinky Keen. I like this episode because I love Pinkie Pie. She's definitely my favorite of the main 6, that's for sure. And I really like that she gets to shine in this episode. She gets to do a bunch of wacky things. And Twilight also gets to do a bunch of wacky things, but more so questions Pinkie Pie the whole time. And I really like this episode. I'm not... Actually, I think it's better than Winter Wrap-Up. I'm going to put it in A tier right about there. I'm going to put it right there. I still think Look Before You Sleep is better than Feeling Pinky Keen. Overall, I think Look Before You Sleep has more substance to it. It has more development to it. But at the same time, I just really like the visual comedy and Pinkie Pie's wacky nature in Feeling Pinky Keen. I think that was a really good episode. I'm going to say that was a really good episode. Number 16 is Sonic Rainboom. I know this is another one of those, like, Ghostbusters type episodes of, like, oh, this is the episode. Like, this is one of the most popular, probably recognizable My Little Pony episodes from Season 1 especially. I just thought it was okay. I liked it for the most part. I think Rarity was a little too Rarity, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of her traits were dialed up to 11, especially with the whole butterfly wing thing. Twilight and the rest of the gang didn't really do a whole lot. They were just sort of there. And honestly, I mean, I know they filled time by, like, showing them around Cloudsdale and stuff, but I sort of wish that the rest of the ponies sort of came in later in the episode, because I think they sort of just filled time until they were needed in the crowd at the Wonderbolt competition. But I did really like the ending, where Rainbow Dash was sort of struggling the whole time, looking really awkward, looking really nervous, and she ended up pulling off the Sonic Rainboom when she was trying to save Rarity. How sweet. So I'm going to put this in B tier. I think it was better than all the other ones in B tier. We're looking at a pretty balanced list right now. We just got to put someone in C, and we'll have a perfectly balanced list. Wow. Alright, now we got Stairmaster. This is the one where Fluttershy gets a babysitting gig. The kids are stupid, and Fluttershy has to save them. I really like how they established the whole staring thing with Fluttershy in this episode. Simply because they bring it back in future episodes. Like, this isn't a one-time thing. And some of you might say that that has nothing to do with the actual episode itself, but I'm counting it as a positive anyway, okay? Outside of that, there wasn't a ton that actually happened in this episode. I think it was generally alright, but it did feel empty at points. I feel like they were, like, filling a little bit. I mean, I like the message, I like the character interactions, I like the Crusaders, but at the same time, there are parts about this episode that I don't really like. But I do like it better than Call of the Cutie. I'm gonna put it here, partially because I believe it should be here, and partially just so I can have a perfectly even tier list. So think of that what you will. Next we have a Dog and Pony show. Actually, I quite like this one. I won't put it in, like, top tiers probably, but I do think it was a pretty good episode. This is the one where everyone, especially Spike, spends, like, a bunch of time trying to rescue Rarity, all while realizing later on that Rarity doesn't exactly need rescuing, because Rarity can stick up for herself, but in a weird sort of way, where she just sort of whines a lot. I don't know, I liked this episode. I thought there were some funny moments, but overall it's nothing super exceptional or super memorable. I just think it's pretty nice. So due to that judgment, I'm going to put it above Bridal Gossip, above the premiere, but under Winter Wrap-Up. That's where I'm going to put a Dog and Pony show. Green Isn't Your Color is a pretty good way to establish Rarity's envy, in my opinion, because Fluttershy sort of becomes the star of the show, if you don't remember. Photo Finish comes around and is like, oh, Fluttershy, you're the best model of all time. You're so adorable, or whatever else, yada yada yada. And even though Fluttershy isn't very comfortable doing it, Rarity sort of forces her to do it anyway, because it's like, oh, this is great, and Rarity sort of lives vicariously through Fluttershy, even though Fluttershy isn't living her best life. But at the same time, I don't know, it has another, like, Dog and Pony show type thing to me, where it's not super exceptional or anything like that. I don't know, it didn't add too much, except I guess the character of Photo Finish. Oh, and Spa Time. I believe this was the one with Spa Time. So we're going to put that above Bridal Gossip purely because of the Spa Time. Alright, now we have Over a Barrel. And I think this episode is sort of unique because this is one of the first episodes that doesn't necessarily revolve around a conflict between any of the main characters, or any of the ponies, really. They introduce two new, I guess, factions of side characters. They have the Buffalo Tribe and the Appaloosa, the town of Appaloosa. And they're having a conflict. And this is one of the first episodes where ponies have to step in and solve the conflict, which, as you might know, becomes a very apparent trend later on. Overall, I think this was okay, but I think it was, I don't know how to put it, it was a little strange seeing everyone sort of solve a conflict that doesn't necessarily involve themselves. So none of the main ponies really learn anything or grow from this. I think this is just an opportunity to establish the Buffalo and establish Appaloosa as a location. And at the same time, I don't think the episode was that exciting because you sort of knew what was going to happen to an extent. A lot of these episodes, obviously, you know what the ending's going to be going in because it's a children's show. But at the same time, it can be unique to see how they go about the endings. And this one, they just sort of said, "Oh, yeah, pie. Yeah, we're gonna eat the pie now." I don't know. That was kind of weird to me. I'm gonna put it yeah, I'm gonna put it at the bottom of C. Alright, next up, we're finally reaching the end of the list. Next we have A Bird in the Hoof, which is where Fluttershy has to take care of Philomena, and there's some unique comedy where Philomena's supposedly sick. Fluttershy just assumes the bird isn't doing well because, dear God, the bird does not look like it's doing well. So they have like a bunch of stuff where Fluttershy tries a bunch of medicine and a bunch of tactics, and nothing really works. And Fluttershy's really embarrassed to tell Celestia, like, "Oh, your bird is dying." But the bird isn't necessarily dying. It's just sort of being reborn because it's a phoenix. Overall, I thought this was pretty funny. I think it lacks in a little bit of substance. I like the Fluttershy focus. Almost exclusively Fluttershy at this point. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like it was a little padded out, especially when, like, Twilight and Fluttershy are on, like, the weird chase sequence. I don't know, that was a little weird. Did you need to have that? And I think Celestia just could have said Philomena was a phoenix in the first place. Overall, though, I think this was a pretty good episode. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Below Sonic Rainboom, below Winter Wrap-Up. I'm gonna put it, like, right there. How about right there? Alright, so I accidentally skipped one on my list. I'm really sorry. This is number 18. This is called the Showstoppers. And this is when Applejack sort of donates, I guess donates would probably be the right term, gives Apple Bloom and her friends the old clubhouse, which they're not immediate fans of, if I remember. And this is sort of the one where they try a bunch of talents, and then they're like, "Oh, they have a talent show? Like a show about talents? Are you serious?" So the Cutie Mark Crusaders try that, fail epically, and then win the prize for the best comedy. So overall, I thought it was a pretty fun episode. I'm gonna put it in A tier, right below Dragon Shy. I don't have a ton to say about it, but I like the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and I like Scootaloo and her little scooter and her little wings, and I think it's fun. So I'm gonna put it bottom of A tier. Sorry I missed that. The Cutie Mark Chronicles! Dun dun dun! This is sort of a weird flashback episode where the three ponies learn from their older sisters and Rainbow Dash that, like, how everyone got their cutie marks. So I think it's a necessary episode, especially to tell these sort of backstories. But I think it falls slightly flat on a rewatch purely because it's all backstory. Like, there's not a ton of, like, character development here, if I remember. I'm gonna put it right below Stairmaster. Owl's Well That Ends Well is our third to last episode here, and this is when Twilight gets another pet instead of Spike. And her name is Owlicious, and she's an owl, and she can't speak. But she's an owl, and she has to go in the library. And then Spike sort of just, like, runs around trying to blame things on Owlicious and try to more or less get Owlicious kicked out. Overall, I like the jealousy. I like the themes in this episode. I think it's funny at the same time. I can't name a lot of flaws with it, Personally, I just didn't really like it that much. But I think critically it's a pretty good episode, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier. Alright, we're speeding through these now. Last two. This one we got Party of One, which is another one of those really, really iconic My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episodes. You know this one. This is when Pinkie Pie invites everyone to her birthday party. They all say no, and Pinkie Pie becomes really depressed because no one wants to come to her party. So she holds a party with inanimate objects, and then she goes to spy on everyone else. Because excuses, I suppose. In fact, the 5 other ponies are planning a surprise party for Pinkie Pie, because Pinkie Pie always throws the parties and they want to have their turn. But since it's a surprise party, you just can't tell Pinkie Pie that you're doing a surprise party on her birthday. Really bad timing on this one, guys, but overall, I really like this episode. I'm going to put it in S tier. I'm going to put it second place, actually, in S tier. I really like this episode. I love Pinkie Pie. I love Pinkamena Diane Pie, the depressed Pinkie that she is. And I just really like this episode, overall. Last, but probably not least, is the best night ever, the season finale. This is the first season finale in Friendship is Magic. Normally they have special occasion, like really big events for the season openings and season finales, which makes sense. I see why they do that. Or did, I suppose. Rest in peace, Friendship is Magic. Say hello to G5. I'll probably do a video about that at some point. But back on the topic of best night ever, I think it's a pretty good season finale. I think it's nice to sort of have everyone's expectations built up as, oh yeah, this is going to be a great party. You know, I'm going to get to meet, God, what was his name? Blue Blood? Was it Prince Blue Blood? I think that was his name. Rarity's going to meet Prince Guy. Fluttershy's going to get to see the garden. Rainbow Dash is going to get to interact with the Wonderbolts. Applejack is going to be able to sell her things. Pinkie Pie's just excited because it's a party, etc., etc. Overall, I think it's a really nice finale because it has individual stories for each of the 6 ponies that all really tie into the same thing of maybe we expected too much and let's just have fun. So I'm going to put it in A tier, but where in A tier? I'm going to put it right in between Dragonshy and Applebug Season. I think Applebug Season is slightly better. So there's my tier list of Season 1, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Let me know if you disagree with anything, because you probably definitely will. I do have some real weird opinions when it comes to My Little Pony. Let me know if you also want to see me do the other seasons episodes on a tier list. We'll see on that. I'm looking forward to doing Season 2 at the very least. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!